Hey there, this is a video that is here to showcase how we are doing our professional coaching sessions in the dojo. In this video, I, alienteavend, the main content creator, coach and manager of OverwatchDojo, am going to coach Tone, our video editor. The purpose of this video is to show you how a coaching session looks like, so you can decide if it is for you or not. Let's answer some usual questions before we begin. The most common one is, how can I get coached? The OverwatchDojo community provides free, community-based coaching to anyone on our Discord server. You just have to phrase your question and post it to the Dojo coaching channel, and anyone who has free time to look at your problem can pitch in. Questions are usually answered really quickly. However, this kind of improvement needs you to be able to ask questions and trust the ability of other community members to help you. Our professional coaching service is available through Patreon. If you want to get a session with one of the coaches of the dojo, go to the site and choose the most fitting frequency. We have 1, 2, 3 sessions per month. Pledging on Patreon supports the channel, allowing the OverwatchDojo team to spend more time on this hobby of ours. When you pledge on Patreon, you state that you want to be part of the coaching. Payments are done in the beginning of the next month, so you will need to wait until that. Then, an email will be sent to you with all the details and the form that you will have to fill so we can choose the most fitting coach for you. After this, you get in contact with your coach and start your improvement. For the sessions, you will need a Lost competitive game VOD uploaded to YouTube. You will shortly see how it is used. After the session, you are going to be able to use the tips from the session along with exercises that you can do to improve mechanical mistakes if there are any. You can also ask your coach about game-related things if you are in doubt. If you have any other questions, make sure to leave a comment below. Let's see a real, uncut session just as it is with anyone else. Alright, so hello guys, this is going to be a public coaching session because we decided that we want to showcase how the coaching in the dojo works, and I am with Tone here. Say hi.
Hey guys, I'm here to be coached because I suck at the game. Yay.
So the idea is to do this uncut as it is, so if there are going to be mistakes, you have to live with them. And let's just get right into the coaching session. I would like to ask you to tell me about yourself a little bit. Describe what you love in the game, what you do, how much time do you play, which heroes do you prefer the most, and stuff like that.
Okay, so I'm more of a casual player, so I usually play maybe 10 hours a week, if that. Sometimes it's more if I'm really energetic on the weekends, but outside of that, I play competitive just to get my rank and whatnot so people can laugh at it. And usually I've been right around 2600, so in the average section of competitive. My hero pool that I pull from whenever I do competitive is usually from heals and tanks, because that's what I feel the best at, is supporting my fellow players, even though they don't like it. I do usually Mercy, Lucio, Moira since she's been released. I can't really aim with Ana like Leppy can. And with Zenyatta, I just don't have the knack for calling out the discords well, so I don't play him that well.
Okay.
Tank-wise, I play Reinhardt. I really loved him when he first released. He hasn't been very popular lately. And I usually play Winston. Now with the dive comp, I can usually target people fairly well and initiate, I think, at an okay level. I can't really play Orisa as well as others. I can try and use her to be the anchor tank that she is and help hold spots or pocket the Torbjorn, whatever going on in that comp. And then I usually just play Overwatch just to have the the characters and the lore, and I love that so much. And then if I really want to let loose and actually feel good about the game, I go into Total Mayhem because that's where it's balanced the most is in that game mode. But yeah, competitively, I'm not the greatest. I would like to see what you have to say. I need to improve on. I feel like I know what you're going to say, but I want to see if I'm right, and I'm sure you're going to wow me with something else during this coaching session.
All right. And how much time do you spend on playing?
Playing just competitive?
Yeah.
Lately it's been, maybe 3 or 4 hours each season because I just haven't gotten into it. I like playing competitively with like groups of people, and a lot of people don't want to play like that, or if they do, they're higher up than me. So I have several friends that are like in Diamond and whatnot, and they won't play with me. It's like kindergarten all over again. They won't play with me, Alien, because I'm a lower tier player, so they think I suck, which guarantee I probably do after watching this. But it's just I work much better in a team where I know everybody knows what their job is instead of solo queue. I mean, I get the benefits of it, but I just like 6 stacks a lot better when I operate in those, because then I don't have to worry about solo carrying the team. But it's difficult for me to find a team to dedicate time to it, and then also to have the rank to get into some of those teams per se.
All right, I see. So you are basically here for the fun regarding Overwatch, and you are also set to improve while you are playing the game. There are a lot of players like that. Okay, that's really good. So you have a video for me, right?
Yes, it's somewhere.
Okay.
In here.
Post the link to Discord, and I will set up a session for you where we can watch the video together. So when we are doing the coaching session, we found out that the best way to do this is to actually watch the videos together, because that gives you the time to think about what is going on in the game. In other games, when players are being coached, the usual thing to do is to play with the players, but we don't usually do this here in Overwatch because there are too many things to focus on, and watching your videos back allows us to think about what the mistakes were and what the strengths were, and this way you can sum up a session and get different insights, and a lot more insight compared to a live coaching session. So that's why we are doing it like this. And I posted a link for you in the Discord. Please join the site. I will set it up.
Okie dokie. Do I have to create a account?
You don't have to create an account. On the left side, you just need to type in your nickname, and then you can log in. You can also register to the site if you want. We are using this one for watching the video together. That allows you to annotate on the video, but usually it is not needed in the beginning. And I can see that you joined. So this is the interface that you can see. Basically, it allows me to draw on the screen. You should be able to see the different color lines.
Ooh,
okay, so
cool.
that works. Also, you can adjust the volume on your side, and this is on your side only. If it is too loud, you can adjust the volume. And basically that's all. I should be able to stop and rewind and go forward in the video if that is needed, and also use different tools, but I usually just draw on the screen and stop it and talk about the stuff that is happening. So without further ado, I think we should just get right into the video. Or do you have any comments regarding this game? Did you watch it back?
I mean, I remember playing this game, and this is honestly the one time I actually enjoyed losing in Overwatch. It's one of those rare moments, but the team I had, I feel like, was competent, and we did really well. Yeah, so we're going to see how badly I am at playing the game is essentially what we're going to see here. But
all right, okay.
I'm sure there's a lot of mistakes here and there.
Okay, so I started the video. It should be started on your end as well.
Yep. I can see it. I just selected Lucio. Yeah,
so we are synced up. That's always good. Sometimes we need to check. The site is really good for this purpose, but sometimes it desyncs, and we need to check that we are seeing the same picture, of course. All right, so we are going to see a Lucio in Volskaya Defense, and if you are going to hit a tab soon, we should be able to see what kind of team you are in. We can tell it by looking at the characters, but the tab screen gives us a nicer overview.
I don't know if I press tab anytime soon.
Okay, so you don't usually do that.
Well, sometimes
not
I do,
in the
but
beginning.
I think we skipped through that part. But
okay, it may have been right in the beginning. Okay, so you have a Genji for sure. I can see that for one of the DPS. You have Hog and the Reinhardt.
And we have a Junkrat somewhere roaming around, and then we have a Moira as our other heals.
Genji, Junkrat for the DPS. I wanted to write there R, and Rain and Roadhog, double R, and Moira for the other support. Okay, so let me just see if I can get back to the tab screen, because it's a lot more easier for us to do this. In the beginning of the game, I always recommend the players to look around and see what is in the team, what the others are running, because it is easier for you to get into the game if you do this mental summary in the beginning, just to see where the team lacks and where the team can be really strong on the map that you play and on the side that you play. So currently this should be a Reinhardt, and
yes,
that is the final lineup. So what can you tell me about this lineup? What do you think the strengths, the weaknesses are? What is your job in this one, without knowing what the enemy team runs?
I feel like at this point, whenever I picked Lucio, my job was to help support the tanks in a sense, not in like healing wise, but in speed boosts every so often. So stay around my Reinhardt, because he'll have shields. So stay around him, and if the Genji starts getting a little bit too deep, I can pop out just a little bit to pull him back in with my speed boost, and then flip it back to heals to keep him up and alive. The Junkrat, I feel like he'll be near me most of the time. And then Moira, I can speed boost her every so often if she needs to get to the tanks, or if she's dashing around, I feel like she'll be fine. But I feel like my main goal is, since you're drawing lines here, I feel like I'm supposed to be supporting the DPS more than the tanks, probably.
Okay.
So,
yeah, when you're using Lucio, you have a lot of things you have access to. What do you think, which part of the Lucio's kit is your best, if I can ask something like that?
Okay, so I feel like the most vital part of Lucio's kit is his speed that he gives to the team. Just based off of what I've seen in the Overwatch League and stuff like that, that's where most of my knowledge is based off of, is that his speed really helps his tanks move around faster, and also helps the team get into positions a lot quicker in those senses. So I feel like my speed boost is the most valuable thing, but also my AoE heals will help boost the effect almost of what Moira can do, in a sense, so help catch up on stuff that she's lacking in. So swapping between the two is very vital, I feel like, but having that speed boost is important.
Yeah, that's right. You should be really quick to judge if you need to utilize the speed, or if you are in need of more healing. Lucio is really versatile in that sense that he can dictate the flow of the game, just because he has access to these big bursts of speed. And you didn't really talk about the ult, but that is also really important, because if you see this team, you only have one shield with the Reinhardt, so the Roadhog won't be able to provide with a lot of protection. He is there for more damage and for the peak potential with the hooks. And if the enemy team starts ulting, starts ramping up ultimates, you as the Lucio can be the one who can prevent a lot of damage if you have the ult. So that's a really important thing to notice here, that the Moira is able to withstand some punishment, but your team needs to be in a good position for the Moira ult to be good. Whereas if you ult to wide range, you can affect most or all of your teammates, and you can protect them against big damage ultimates that the enemy can use to push in. So it is really important to play the Lucio in that aspect. You usually want to have at least one support that can protect you against these kind of DPS ults.
Okay.
All right. So let's see how the game goes. So if you have any question during the session, make sure to stop me, and we are going to discuss anything that comes up. And I am going to stop the video frequently, ask questions, and pinpoint some things in the video.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right. So right in the beginning, it is you went out a little bit. What was the purpose there?
At the beginning of the fight, I saw the Genji kind of like fading out, so I wanted to make sure I gave him a bit of a speed boost, because he dropped down at that point. So I was watching the Genji because he's a little bit overextended, but not too much. So I just wanted to be there just to give him that little bit of a speed boost. But then I didn't want to be in line of sight of the enemy. So, and that one, that's a good question. I think I wall right off, and the truck boosted me up there. So
Yeah, okay.
So that was just poor planning on my end.
Okay, so right in the beginning, because you have access to speed and you are kind of jukey, you can use the Lucio to gain information on the enemy team. I'm not sure how frequently you try to communicate with your teammates.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of communication per se.
Okay, but the information in itself can be really useful only for you if you don't communicate, because you will know what you are against and you can see what they are planning to do. So it seems like they are... so even though you push in the very beginning, it is safe to do because you can still get back to your team and behind the shields. You don't push too far. And as you said, you tried to salvage this Genji to help him get back to the team. So that was well done. Yeah, this little mistake here with the wall ride, you get into the front line. This is something that is really important not to do with Lucio. You can be really elusive. You can juke around the enemies a lot, but you never want to be in the front line, in the focus of the enemy team, because then you can go down really quickly. You only have 200 HP and your healing aura can sustain you for some seconds, but if you get bursted in the front line, it is a really bad situation for you. So when wall riding around, I know it is fun and I know it is something that a lot of Lucio players do, but you need to pay attention to your positioning, because if the team loses you here, you lose most of your ult value. You won't be able to charge it, you won't be able to use it defending the first point, and your team will lack healing. So these kind of drifting into the enemy team mistakes are the ones that should be avoided with Lucio.
Yeah.
All right. Apart from that, so in the last like 15 to 20 seconds, you jumped around a lot. You taxied back the Genji, and then you got behind cover, and then back to the front line, and then back again. What I'm really lacking here is the spam that Lucio players usually do. So what I'm talking about is setting up to spots where you can expect the enemy to be in the next few seconds. So like I am trying to go back a little bit, sort of juggling the video around too much, but something like this. This is a really good spot for you to shoot, because if you are able to get a few random headshots in the enemy team, you can do that for free basically. You don't have to worry about the enemies coming from the right, because you can see that the main tank is pushing from this direction. You can identify that by seeing the flame strike, and you can also use the audio in the game, so that makes it a lot more easier, because when we are stopping the video you don't have access to that, but during the game you will be able to hear if the enemy is approaching, if any enemies are approaching from this side, because they might be playing a split tactic or something like that. But regardless of where they are pushing, it is really important with the Lucio to farm as much damage as possible. And in order to do that, you need to start shooting right in the beginning. And these kind of spots can be good, because the enemy will try to set up in a spot that is not accessible to your DPS, or that is protected by their primary shields. And you can just spam these areas, and if they walk into your shots, you can get a few extra percentages on the ult, and that makes a big difference. Really aggressive Lucios can farm the ult incredibly quickly. So Lucio has one of the slowest charging ult in the game, but if you're actually doing damage, you can do a lot, and you can farm it really quickly, utilizing your damage and your healing. Okay, so let's see this fight. Okay, so you nearly died there 2 times at least, pushing too much into the enemy team. So this wall ride drifted you into the enemy team, and then you had to get back behind cover here. And the big thing about that is every time you lose the line of sight, you lose the ability to heal your teammates, because the Lucio's aura works like that. You need the line of sight in order to be able to heal your teammates.
I did not know that. Literally, I thought the circle was just, okay, there's LOS in this. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, you can't heal or speed boost through the walls, and that should tell you that you need the line of sight for the ability. Yeah, that's one thing. The other thing is that you are drifting too much into the front line. So you are healing your teammate. Again, you drifted to the front line, and you will do that a second time in a few seconds here, I think.
Yeah.
And you are being damaged, and here you only survive with 7 HP, being in the front line. That could have been a death easily.
Yeah,
and in other situation it will be. You don't really benefit from being here in this position. You are too much in front. The enemy can hit you with random spam. They don't really have to focus on trying to kill you. Basically, you are throwing yourself into the enemy team, and you can do the same thing that you are doing from safety if you just stand around here, or you can go to the right side of the track here and still sustain your team, still do damage, and still boop away anyone who is trying to be aggressive, but then you don't expose yourself to the enemy.
Okay,
any questions about that?
No, that all makes sense. I guess I was being overly aggressive or just overly timid. I think what I was trying to do was to help get the Roadhog out there with my speed, so he could get out, hook somebody, pull him in, and then we could take him out there. I think that's what my mind was saying whenever we were doing that. But then you make a good point. I take damage a lot whenever I pop out every once in a while. So I think my main set was trying to get the Roadhog out so he could hook somebody, and we could pull him in without having his slowness whenever he's pulling him in. So
okay.
I think that's what I was going with seeing that tank comp, was that we were going to try and hook him behind the shield and take him out.
All right, I see. Yeah, you can play Lucio really aggressively with the speed. Sometimes players just wall ride behind the enemy team, drop down and boop somebody in your team, because if you are doing that in the right moment, when the enemy team is already committing to a push, you can get the frontliner tank into your team really deep, so your team can get a lot of damage in for free, basically using the distraction that you created, and then you won't be the first priority for the enemy team because they are already pushing in. They won't focus on the Lucio because you are not that big of a threat. So if you're playing aggressive with any character that has low HP but has a high mobility, you always want to pay attention to not be in the center of their attention, of the enemy's attention. That's a good rule of thumb. Another thing that you want to keep in mind is that you should rarely pass your frontliner in any situation, because that exposes you to a lot of random damage, and you want to avoid that as much as possible. Not only because it makes it hard for you to stay alive, you can go down to some shots that you are not expecting, but it also makes it hard for you to actually do something when it is needed. So like if they start pushing in now, you have to pay attention to your HP instead of going in and booping them away in the other direction, because you have to care for yourself first. That's the most important thing. You don't want to be dead in this game, because that is a big punishment.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Enemy is pushing in. Let's see that again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you didn't really heal up here. Could have stayed for a longer period of time just to make sure that you are, when you are jumping to the front line again, you are healthy. After that, the enemy rank pushes in, and unfortunately you were amping in the same time, so you couldn't boop him away.
Yeah.
If you notice the enemy Reinhardt charging in, you can just boop him away most of the time, and this is what Lucio is used for mainly. you are distracting the enemy. You are making sure their life is hard as hell.
Okay.
And that is, I personally think that is one of the biggest reasons Lucio is really fun to play, because you can just screw around and you can do whatever you want because you are not a big priority for the enemies. They will rarely target you first, but you can boop them around, you can taxi your team wherever you want, and it is really fun. So if you see anything like this, your boop is really something that you want to use actively. To boop the Rain away, maybe boop him into this truck so you halt the charge. And you were in a good position for that. The timing wasn't really good.
Yeah, I didn't time that well at all. I think I saw that my Roadhog and the Reinhardt were low on HP, so I decided to amp it up to keep them up. I was not expecting the Reinhardt to charge, so that's what happened there. And then I saw I see him go away, I go like, well, that wasted. Great. So
yeah, well, this can happen during the game. Can't really expect what the enemy does all the time.
No, but I agree with you. I should have held it probably a little bit longer and anticipated with how heavy their push was going.
Yeah. You could also hold the amp it up for a little bit longer, because you can see that your team is not really in need of healing.
No.
So that is also something that you should be aware as Lucio. The amp can be used to heal a lot for a few seconds or speed your team away to a better position. It is a really valuable resource that you don't want to spend blindly. You always want to spend it consciously. Okay,
I agree.
So you were amping during the charge of the Reinhardt, and this charge is really deep. This is also something that can be abused with Lucio. If someone makes a positional mistake like this, they are committing to a fight, but the team is not following closely, you can just turn towards the team and boop them away. That will you will be able to gain an extra 2 seconds for your team, and that extra 2 seconds can be used to get rid of this Reinhardt without any real support, so to say.
Okay.
So that is also something you can do, and this can be really fast, like you turning to the left because they are coming in from the left, booping them away, and then getting back to the team and chopping away the Rain's health, or getting back somewhere to the point where it is safer.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right. Yeah, so your Rain got into a bad position, he was killed, and now the enemies are going to storm the point. Okay. And again, you were too much in the front here. So after your rank goes down, you should see, not sure, how much do you watch the kill feed? How frequently do you check it?
I try and check it as often as I can. I knew the Reinhardt was down, and I was trying to boop their Reinhardt up so we could get to their DPS. As you can see, that didn't work out so well. But I did notice that the Reinhardt went down. I did not notice that the Genji went down at that point in time because I was focused on the attack there. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So anytime this kind of situation happens to you, with Lucio, you again don't want to be in the front line. So standing. Getting a boop in is not that valuable in this situation because they already have the numbers advantage, and one little boop can't really change that much unless you are playing on Lijiang Tower or maps where you can actually push enemies down the abyss.
Okay.
But in situations like this, if you boop them away like 2 meters, it won't really make a difference, and they also have a Lucio, so you can they can just make it up with the speed that they have. So instead of being aggressive in situations like this, you are much more needed for extra healing and for extra protection to anyone who is still on the point. So in this situation, I would have fallen back behind the Roadhog after this one, just to make sure that you can that you are keeping him alive for as long as possible. Yeah, he was moved away by the Reinhardt, by the charge of the Reinhardt, so that may not have been a good situation. But if you manage to stay alive for a little bit longer, you might have access to the ult as they are pushing in.
Yeah.
And the importance of the ult is not that you should try to use it to contest the first point, because that is gone.
No.
After the enemy has this kind of advantage, you can't really make it back on this map, and generally you can't really save the first point after being taken like this. But you really need to make sure that you have this protective ult that we talked about in the beginning. It makes a really big difference, because they are going to snowball into the point. They are going to use every resource that they have, and they are going to have more ult charges because they were able to kill most of your team in the first fight, whereas you didn't really do that much with the team. So getting your ult as quickly as possible in this situation can actually save you from a quick enemy cap. And this is what you are doing right now. Sometimes jumping ahead of the shield. This is something that you need to work on. This kind of movement is really unnecessary. So to say, you don't benefit anything from passing the shield. You can do the same damage from behind it, from protection.
Okay.
And you are only exposing yourself and making the rain seem a bit sad, because he can't use the shield. You are eating the damage instead of his shield. So yeah, and now
makes sense.
Now you have access to the ult, and the current most important thing is to stay alive until the enemy pushes in, because then you can use the ult and then you can turn the tides of the battle. Okay, so any movement toward the enemy like this is really unnecessary, because you have a projectile attack that doesn't have damage fall off, and you can use that from wherever. Okay, a lot of things happening here. So you can use that projectile attack from any distance and still do the same damage. And this is why it is really important to understand that it doesn't have a damage fall off, so you can stand on the other side of the map in safety and you can still do the same damage. Of course, you won't have access to that many players with the aura, but as I said, in the current situation, the most important thing is to avoid being in the line of sight of the enemies when they are storming on the point, because they are going to use their ults. They are going to have Earth Shatter, they might have a grab, and you want to counter it with your ult.
Yeah. No, I think what I was doing in those situations was trying to go get to the Genji and the Roadhog and try and pull them back, because again, slightly extended, so I was just trying to pull them back at that situation. So yeah.
So when you are playing a support, what do you think, which is the more important, to save a Genji, for example, or to save a Roadhog who are overextending? Let's say that they are here and here and you are behind the rain shield, but you know that the enemies are really close because you can see the HP of your teammate dropping heavily. So who do you want to save? This one, knowing the left side, knowing that the enemies are there, this one on the right side, knowing that he might be salvaged more easily, or doing nothing and staying in behind cover?
I mean, I'd rather have the numbers advantage, so I guess I would have to go to the right side and leave the other teammate as a sacrifice in an ult charge, I would assume. At least in my mind's eye, I'd like to have the extra man advantage. But I guess if he's also beyond, like, I'm assuming since this guy over here on the left is already behind the wall and whatnot, I'm assuming the guy on the right's also behind the wall? Or is he... Okay, well in that case, no. I guess I should stay with the Reinhardt and pray that we don't die.
Yeah, that's the best decision. Even though you are playing a support, you shouldn't ever sacrifice yourself. There are some exceptions to this, so I shouldn't say ever, but like if you have someone carrying your team and having a game changer ult or an ult that you can set up and combo with, that's a situation where you can actually need to where you can try to sacrifice yourself for the greater benefit. But usually in 99% of these kind of situations, you want to make sure that you are the one staying alive. This sounds selfish and this can sound fishy from the support viewpoint, because supports are there for supporting your teammates, but if they are dumb, you can't really save them anyway. Okay, now see what is happening. So they open up with the Rain ult and the Tracer ult, but you got 2 picks also. So the ultimate usage was good. It would have been better if you tried to predict that they are going to storm the point, not pushing in the middle. So the biggest thing to pay attention to here is that they are not trying to get past here. Usually they cap the first point and they quickly go to this second one. Instead of that, they are coming on the longer route just to stay out of the line of sight. This should give you an idea to get the hell out of the center of the point. You don't want to be there. You should pull to either to the right or to the left. Okay. In the situation where you got ulted by the rain, you were behind cover as you fall, so that saved you basically, as I could say.
Yeah, that was deliberate. Yeah, that was deliberate. Completely planned.
So right here, I think it saved you from a Zarya ball and also from some random damage. But then ulting into this situation is actually good. You want to be able to stay on the point as long as possible. And if you die here, you risk losing the ult and losing the fight. So yeah, unfortunately they farmed the Grav as well and the Genji, but the Genji died quickly, so this was a hold after all. And you were able to farm 20% of the ult, so that's spectacular. And that's also really important. Okay, so let me stop here. So far, standing in 2 forward positions, being too aggressive, that's one of the things that you need to pay more attention to. Making sure that you use the amp up in the right time, that's also really important. And doing damage constantly, trying to stand in positions where you can damage the enemy freely. These are the ones.
Yeah, so I guess my whole shield dancing thing's kicking in when I'm playing that Lucio.
Yeah. We do that with the tanks. You don't need to do that with anybody else.
Yeah. I
mean, you can do that during a fight. It can be really beneficial if you are being attacked and you are dancing around the shield, avoiding DPS who wants to hunt you down. But in these situations, you are a lot more safe behind the shield, just doing your job instead of jumping out and in front of the shield. You don't really benefit from it. That's the biggest reason you shouldn't do it, because you don't gain anything from being in front of the shield, whereas you gain a lot of protection behind the shield.
Makes sense.
All right, let's see the next fight. Okay, so let's talk about the dynamics, because I think that is also an important part of the game when you are playing a support with the counter ult. So there is a team fight that is won by your team. What can you expect from the enemy team? What do you need to pay attention now?
Figure out what ults they used in the last fight and see if they're going to lead with any of those, and then just try and think of where they're going to come from, I guess. So
yeah, this is also important because of the damage that we talked about. So you can expect them to come from a specific distance. Some alarm just gone off, so I need to check it. Sorry.
Okay, you're fine.
All right, I'm back.
No carbon monoxide this round?
It is just that. Unfortunately, I opened the door and the windows. It should be okay. All right, so let's continue. Yeah, so you need to predict where they are coming from, because that's how you can do damage to them. And you can also boop them back and maybe use the speed boost to pull your team back if they are cooperating. If they are not, you can be just aggressive. You can try to harass the enemies. And most importantly, you don't want to be in any spot where you are susceptible to a lot of damage. Okay, that was a good pick. 4 kills for your team, this should be a won fight.
Yeah.
Okay, so in situations like this, if you can war ride up and sneak in some extra damage, that is also something that you should do. When you killed 4 or 3 to 4 enemies, they are going to fall back usually, or just die on point. So you can be aggressive, you can even try to speed boost ahead of them and boop them back. That is also something that really aggressive Lucio players try to do. That is a way that you can play Lucio. Okay, got ulted by the Tracer. I don't think you were the target. I think you jumped in front of your hog.
Yeah,
so
no.
Again, but let's see that again.
Yeah, that was a total get down, Mr. President thing. Yeah, that's what that was.
Lucios get boosted by the enemy because they are jumping around. They get ulted mistakenly. Yeah, I think that was for the hog. You took his present. Okay, you were a little bit exposed. Again, not behind the shield of the Reinhardt. You want to try to... You want to keep everybody in your aura, so they have the mobility and they have the healing. You should pay attention to stuff like this. Again, I think it is a good ult. The Reinhardt was a little bit in a forward position and the team didn't really follow it up. So let's check that again. I think it might have been saved. So in this exact moment, you can only see the Reinhardt.
Okay.
He is using the ult. Yes, he has a bubble from the Zarya, but you can't really see anybody else from his team. They might be coming from this corridor. So I think this ult could be saved for the next team fight. And just because if you wait like 1 extra second, you should still be able to ult because you don't have any imminent threat after getting up here. But the Rein is being overextended, getting to the wall, and you can only see a Moira and the Zarya, and you don't really need the shield against them. You can just basically boop them back. Okay, do you agree with that?
I do. I guess I wanted a buffer. I wanted to make sure that we could hold long enough. But you're right. There was only a Moira and a Zarya. I did not know what the charge of the Zarya was at that point in time. And I guess I panic ult at that point because I remember the last ult that happened and how teammates died because I wasn't able to get up fast enough to ult. So I was just like, if I can just slam down the beat, then they'll be able to. My tanks will be able to stay alive at that point in time. So I just saw the Reinhardt go back, and I thought I saw the Tracer go back with the Reinhardt. So I was like, I don't want my tanks to die just yet. So
yeah. Okay, better safe than sorry in most of the cases. However, in situations like this, if you spend that extra second to actually look around and see if you have any use for the ult, because you are looking for high damage enemies or any combinations that they can set up with some high damage ability, then you should use the ult. And if you use it and survive, that is okay. Basically they used the Rein ult as well, so you are going to need to pay attention to the Grav next. But you are farming the ult quite nicely here, doing a lot of that kind of random damage that we talked about. Okay, chasing the Rein.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
Okay, but let's talk about that. So this can be played well with Lucio. There are a lot of situations where you can actually screw around the enemy players instead of going in there. So what is the objective of the Rein here? Let's play the game of predictions. What do you think?
I think he's distracting us and he's going after that health pack because he took some damage.
Yep. So this might have been a mistake. He wanted to charge somebody to that wall. You can predict that because he was damaged, he is going to get the Mega. After that, he basically has 2 routes because he is going to try to fall back from this position. It is really unlikely that he is going to go Rampage and go on the point alone. Rather, he is going to start searching for the line of sight of his supports. So he is going to try to get back here. To screw around this Reinhardt, you can just easily stand here and boop him into your team instead of going for a Rein hunt.
Okay.
So in situations like this, if you are looking for ways to distract the enemies, the best way to do that is to try to predict them, try to predict what they are going to try to do. Oh, okay, and there's a wombo combo. You couldn't really do anything about that. How much attention do you pay to the ult in your team and in the enemy team? So do you try to count them and pay attention to it?
I didn't, as you can see, I didn't tab a lot, so I did not keep track of my own team's ult that well. The enemy team, I try and note every once in a while if I remember, like on big pushes. So I did not account for that the Zarya had Grav. So that was, yeah. Okay,
that is part of the support skill set that you can work on by playing a lot of games, basically. So the rule of thumb is everybody will have an ult in every 2 team fights, but if they are doing good, they can have 1 ult in every fight. What you need to be prepared as Lucio or as any support who is having a protective ult are the ones that can do a lot of damage or lock your team down. So Rein and Zarya in this case, and Zarya with the Tracer. And maybe the Genji. Because he can do a lot of damage by himself. So these are the ones that you should keep track of, or try to keep track of. This is something that is that can be really hard. I know that, but this is something that you can start working on. This is not a skill that you can improve in 1 or 2 weeks. This is something that is more of an overtime thing. But you can start thinking about what I need to counter with my ult. Alright. Questions about that?
No, that all makes sense. I need to keep better track of that stuff. So it all makes sense. So.
Alright. Okay, let's talk about contesting the point. So you can see that your teammates are dead and you are rushing to the point using your amp up speed. And then failing to climb to the top and appearing in the focus of the enemy team. So this was the reason you went down quickly here. This could have been avoided by a better climb here. Not sure what happened.
Yeah, I just for some reason I didn't latch on or something. I'm not the best at wall riding, so.
Oh, okay. Don't have a lot of experience in it.
Yeah, it's one of those skills I use basically to try and maybe get that extra speed when I'm trying to get to the point. And I tried to be cool and get up top so I could just kind of skate around. You know, circular places like on Lijiang on that one on is it Gardens or Night Market? No, Gardens. I think it's Gardens.
Yeah.
Where that circular tundra is, I try and get up there and just ride around. Sometimes I can do that. I'm that skilled, but when it comes to this, apparently I can't make it up to the top.
Okay, not that big of a mistake. It can be easily practiced. This is a mechanical skill that you need to experience how to climb in this kind of fashion where you just want to climb upwards.
Yeah, it's a baggy pattern.
Yeah, it can help you a lot because it is easier to contest the point if you start riding these kind of walls. The biggest mistake about this part is not about the wall riding. It's about not looking around. Because if you looked around right in the spawn, you should see that you have somebody to taxi to the point. And you can stay a lot longer if you help your teammates boosting in. Not sure if that would have been a good decision here because it was really near the end. But in general cases, you want to look around and then make the decision if you want to go on the point alone or if you want to taxi your teammates.
Okay.
And we are going to talk about taxiing in the attacker side because that's an important part of Lucio's life.
Yep.
Okay, so again, the Junkrat got 2 picks in that fight, and that allowed you to repel the enemies. You already have 22% of the ult. And let me just stop here. Tell me what the enemy is going to use in the next one.
Oh, fudge. They might have a grav.
They
Possibly.
might, yeah. But I think they used the grav recently.
They could have an Earth Shatter again.
Yeah, that's right.
That's probably what it's going to be more likely.
And
Earth Shatter.
They could also have the Genji ult. Those are the 2 ult that you need to prepare for. So for the Earth Shatter, you don't want to be in the middle where the Rein is about to ult. For the Genji ult, you just need to be quick with the ult. And you don't want to get damage, because then a hack and slash combo will eliminate you. Okay, and there's the Shatter. So that could have been predicted if you are thinking actively about the ults. And if you hide instead of being on the center of the point, you could actually ult it and mitigate a lot of damage here. So pulling to the left, maybe ulting as you see the Rein ult going off, and shielding all of your teammates. Maybe not that Genji, because he was out of the line of sight, but other than the Genji, everybody else. So this is why I'm talking this much about reading the enemy and trying to predict what the enemy is about to do, because it is a really important thing to do with Lucio. All right, any questions to the first part?
No, that all makes sense. I got to keep track of enemy ults. That's something I guess I mean, I know I need to work on. I guess that's one thing you just don't think about a lot, is having to keep track of all the stuff like that.
There are a lot of things that you need to pay attention to when you are playing Overwatch. There are a lot of mechanics when you are starting the game. You need to get familiar with the maps, you need to get familiar with the characters, their kit, and there are just a lot of overwhelming information, I think, that you quickly have access to. And as you improve your game, you will open up new insights, you will get better at predicting, you will get better at reading the enemy, you will get better at your mechanics and stuff like that. So this improves gradually, I would say. And yeah, paying attention to the ult is a skill that is more important to the supports, even on the low levels. And that can be less important for the DPS, because as a DPS you just want to kill people. As the support, you want to predict what you want to counter with your ult, or what you want to predict what you want to combo with and stuff like that. So game sense related decisions can be really useful even on the lower levels, whereas you are going to work on the mechanics. Okay, did you see the mistake there?
I didn't see me 1v1ing the Rein at all. I did not see that whatsoever.
Okay, so again, you played the frontliner. You shouldn't be in the face of the enemy with Lucio.
Yeah, I guess I was trying to boop the Reinhardt up again. I was trying to be cool. I can't be cool.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to do that, use the truck, ride to the top of the track, and drop behind the Rein and boop him into your team. But if you are booping him backwards, you don't really get any value from that. Okay, getting back to the point and amping it up with the heal. That's a good decision. You saw that most of your teammates were low here. Okay, Lucio might not be the best target for you to try to shoot. I would recommend going for any kind of DPS who are standing still, because you can sneak in a lot of headshots, or anybody who is a big target, because that way you can farm the ult. Okay. And generally just try to be annoying and try to keep your distance from the main tanks of the enemy, because they will hurt you. Alright, so now the team is getting killed one by one. That's not a good situation. Okay, let's talk about this one. So he went in to try to save the diva. What do you think about this one?
I thought I could get the diva out so that they could farm their mech back up. That was kind of the idea. But it didn't work out as well as thought. So
okay, the diva is in a really bad spot there. She is behind walls. She can't really get out. So she is being focused by the enemy. Most of them are on the point and hitting the diva. So there is basically no chance that you can salvage her. However, as you get into the point, you are going to be the next target for the enemies. And it was lucky that you had the speed on and you were able to get out. But you shouldn't try to save these kind of teammates. And again, this can sound selfish from a support viewpoint, but you are more important. These situations are too risky for you to go in. Okay, I will stop the video again. In the last 20 to 30 seconds, your team was doing a really big mistake, dying one by one.
Yeah.
In this situation, I would recommend just getting back. You shouldn't try to stay around the point because you have no chance of capping it when you are dying one by one. And if you linger there, you are mentally forcing your teammates to get in there because they see that there are two players already in. So they will just run in one by one and die one by one. Even if you play passively, paying attention to not to be in the line of sight of the enemies. So it is better to come back to your side of the map and to group up and then go in together again. Alright, being in the front again, just a bit, trying to get on the point, I think.
Yeah, I the Tracer got on point and was able to kill two people, so I was trying to distract the Reinhardt and get him to fall back so that my team could pull in behind me, and then if the Tracer was still up and alive, I was going to try and drop it. But as you can see, that's not how the plan worked out. So
yeah. So you could amp in the gate to help your teammates get to the point. That's also something. You cannot really gain any benefit from the ult if you are going on the point alone, or even if you are only there with the Tracer. So that's also something that you need to pay attention. When you're on the attacking side, you want to make it count. You can ult early and then speed boost your team in, or you can speed boost your team in and ult in the last second when it is feasible, but you shouldn't try to go into deep. So this one was good because you are already committing to the fight. So this was a well-timed ult here. This is what you are looking for. Okay. Yep. All right. So this was good. You targeted the Rein and you targeted the McCree. It can be really easy. It can be really easy to get picks with the Lucio in the chaos because the enemies will usually don't pay any attention to you. You don't seem really threatening to them. You're not a DPS, but you can actually do a lot of damage to the head if you are aiming that well. And you can just stand around and do random headshots. Let's see how you storm the second point. Again, being too exposed a few times, but not that much, fortunately, in this one. Okay. And you are now a little bit cornered. Okay, so you are doing a lot of damage, jumping in and out. I would say that the last jump towards the enemy was a little bit risky. Again, there is no real benefit from jumping in to the enemy team. Okay, supporting your hog. Again, being a little bit too close to the enemy for my taste. All right. Okay. So this is kinda the same situation as before. Your teammates dying one by one.
Yeah.
If you are not communicating, you can still use the chat wheel to spam the group up thingy to make sure that your teammates are pulling back and grouping up. It may not work because they tend to not to pay attention, but sometimes you can save the team from 2 minutes of dying one by one. It's kind of bad to watch. Because you have the ult, so you could actually just group up and push in together, but they are not doing that. And any way that you can force a group up in your team can be actually game changer, because that enforces cooperation, and that can help you push in together. All right, not much to do in this part, basically. And yeah, this is the taxing. So getting back to the door, making sure that everyone is around you. This is how you can try to force your team to not to die. But apparently that Genji just wants to die again and again.
Yeah.
Okay. So in this case, making the best out of the situation, ulting maybe at this point and boosting your team back. So now you get a pick. So you are even. May have been a tad too late. Your Moira was getting killed by the Kree, but generally I think it was okay. So your team committing to the fight, being together, you ulted, and now you are doing a lot of damage to the enemy team. And trying to be annoying, and that is the most important part. Booping enemies away like you did with this Rain. Okay, that was unlucky. Okay, so any questions regarding this part?
No, not exactly. I mean, I tried to get them to group up. I know I called it out earlier in the vid when you were talking about how I needed to tell them to group up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that Genji, I don't know if he was actually listening or whatnot, but I said group up, and I said, I'll go get the hog so we can push. And I went, got the hog, come back. The Genji died. I'm like...
Yeah, he was trying to do damage to the enemy team from behind the cover here, but I think he got shot by either the Moira or the Kree. Okay, the hog is again in a bit too deep. You could try to boop the enemies to save him, but he was able to get back. Okay, let's see. So one thing that you are not using too frequently is the speed in. And that is something that can help a lot for your team to storm the point. So you are keeping the ult, rather the amp to heal on the point, but you could try to use it a little bit earlier to speed in and actually get to the important targets more quickly. Okay, and I think the ult was well timed. You are making sure that no one is dying from your team.
Yeah, that's why I usually don't try and use the amp up for speed, because I'm worried about heals. Again, I'm in a lot of solo queue situations where usually, even though there's like a Moira, the Moira will usually focus more on DPS, and then I become the solo heals. So that's why it's just the way I've been formed almost
that is
from
the
doing competitive.
safer thing to do. Okay,
it's just to hold it for the. I mean, if we're coordinated, I'll work with stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh boy, raging in the comments. I'm playing Mercy, guys. Heavens forbid.
Yeah, well, you have a Pharah for Mercy, so...
I mean, we got a Pharah, Orisa, Bastion.
Bastion, okay.
So I would stay near the Bastion and the Orisa more often, just to keep the damage up and keep him up.
Okay, I will refresh the site because it started lagging on my end. You don't have to do anything. I will get back here in a sec.
Sounds good.
around the end it started to lag a bit.
Could also be that the recording could be tainted.
Yeah, sometimes the site does this if we have longer sessions. Okay,
So as
yeah,
you can
it's
see
a lot
there,
smoother.
yeah, you can see the comp there. We have a Roadhog running around somewhere, I think. Maybe. Or maybe he switched off. 2, 4, 5. I don't know where the sixth person is.
Okay, so when you're playing Mercy, you need to mind yourself. You don't want to be in spots where you are susceptible to a lot of damage, because they are going to try to kill you. You are the first target that they want to kill.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing. And keeping the damage on your high damage allies can go a long way. So yeah, you are keeping the healing up, but you have a secondary healer with a Moira, so she can also heal. Your damage is more valuable in this comp. Every time there is a sniper with high peak potential or anybody who can do a lot of coordinated damage, the damage boost becomes really valuable. So yeah, and making sure that you look around like you do to know where the Farah is your escape from prison ticket, basically. So that's well done. You should be aware where you can escape from Genji ults and stuff like that. Okay, the Walker timing was good, and now you can heal a lot. Okay. Yeah, I was looking for a good spot to use the rest, but they were really on the point. You couldn't do much about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the important thing about that is that in the current patch, if you are rezzing with Mercy, you are really susceptible to damage. So you really need to be careful who you are rezzing. Okay, I think that's it. Any questions about the session? Or any questions about supports or general things?
And is there any other like things I need to be aware of as a support? I know we've gone over I need to keep track of ults and whatnot, but is there anything else that I need to be like really focused on other than, you know, like healing? Like for Lucio's speed and heals, I'm referencing it again. In the Overwatch League, I see a lot of sometimes is that they'll spam the fade, that they'll spam it going back and forth between like speed and heals. Is there a real benefit to that, or is it just something cool?
Generally, on higher levels, you are using the speed more because you are picking the Lucio for the utility and not for the healing. Healing is provided by the main healer. But on lower levels with uncoordinated teams, the healing might be more valuable because players make a lot of mistakes and you can't really help them with the speed because they don't really know how to position themselves or how to dance around shields with the extra speed. Rather, they would use the healing. You can switch between the speed and back to healing, and they are usually doing that to gain a little bit of extra momentum as Lucio and still keep the healing, so they are having the benefits of both worlds and they can switch quickly. But most of the time they are going to be on speed on the higher levels in the league.
Okay, and then positioning wise for Lucio, I know we said I need to stay behind the shields and whatnot, but if it's like if I don't have a shield to be behind, where should I be?
Okay, so it is really important to use the natural covers that you have, so any kind of terrain and anything that you can hide behind, because with the rhythm of your gun you can peek out, do the shots and then go back behind the wall and still keep the line of sight on your allies, so you can actually heal them by doing this. If you are safe to spam a spot, you can just stand out there. You should still move around a little bit just to avoid random headshots, but you can spam in the general direction of the enemy. If you don't really have, if you don't really have terrain to hide behind, you can use the bodies of your tanks as protection, because you can try to heal them back, the other healer will try to heal them back, and they can, if they are losing the shields, they can still protect you with their bodies, and you can be there to boop the enemies back who are getting too close, so you can synergize in this way.
Okay, that makes sense. That's all my questions.
Alright, I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
To sum it up, you are sometimes a little bit too aggressive and too exposed to the enemy team. You need to pay attention not to get into positions that don't have any added value. You should rather be safe than sorry, basically. You should pay attention to your damage output. You can do a lot of random damage to the enemy if you are setting up in good spots, and this should be more easy if you don't have to pay attention to the damage coming from the enemy if you set up in good positions, like we mentioned, behind the shields, behind the bodies of the tanks, and using the natural covers and the rhythm of your gun. Predicting the enemy team is also really important, because that's what makes a difference with your ult, and you should also try to spend an extra second before you are ulting, looking around and deciding if you really need to ult or not. I think these were the biggest ones, and if you want to practice the mechanics, I would recommend war riding, mainly to vertical positions, so you can get to high grounds more easily. That can also make your life easier when you want to do damage, because if you can get to high grounds easily with a war ride, you can do free damage to the enemies. And this might seem fishy, but in team fights where you are not being paid attention to, you can do a lot of damage to any DPS who are focusing on other targets. And this is why practicing the aim with Lucio, either on the playground, or what's that, the training ground, or against bots, or in free-for-all, can be really beneficial. If you just practice the shots to make sure that you can hit those headshots, it sometimes can be really scary if a Lucio has a good aim. So those are the things, those are the main takeaways. And we talked about a lot of smaller things, and after the session I usually sum it up and send it to you on the Discord, so you will have a summary that you can revise if you want to.
Okay, cool.
All right,
That's fancy.
and I hope you enjoyed the session, and that's basically it. That's how we do the coaching in the dojo.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, thank you for your attention.
Yeah, no problem. That was actually really educational. I guess I never really noticed how much I dance in front of the shield. I guess, again, with my backstory of solo queue and duo queue, I can't depend on anybody that much. Whenever, even with DPS or anything else, I always say, "Oh, I'm a god Genji. My name's Shadowburn 2.0." It's like, no, you're not. Get back over here. And so that's, I'm kind of like I feel like I'm the babysitter of the team.
Yeah, sometimes it is like that with the supports.
So that's why I'm sometimes overly aggressive, but it's because I'm trying to keep my teammates who feel like they need to be aggressive that much.
Yeah, I mean,
in good health, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, you can be really aggressive with Lucio. I have seen players who are war riding into the enemy team, then booping them back and doing a lot of damage, and still getting away from nearly every situation that they create like this. And this can be really frightening for the enemy, because the only thing that they can see is that when they commit to the fight, there is a Lucio coming, booping them away and maybe killing a DPS by himself, and that can be scary. And it also makes the Lucio's ult charge really quickly, and it makes the life of the enemy really like they are playing in hell, so to say.
Okay.
So there is a style for aggressive Lucio players, but it is not going into the face of the enemy team. You always want to be sneaky.
Okay. I like that. I think I can work on that.
All right.
Alright,
Okay.
well,
I
stop
think,
it.
yeah, that's all.
Thank you for your attention. Hope you enjoyed this session, and if you want to have one, head over to our Patreon. Like and subscribe and join our Discord server. See you guys in the next one.
Have to join forces.